Right, game two, WaffleMaster versus PapaFrankZz. Again, it's on blue shift. Let's see if WaffleMaster is going to bring a similar sort of proxy cheese, or if PapaFrankZz can devastate with a raft of early Zerglings or whatever. So the production tab is up in the left as per always. Up in the top right, we can see how the minerals and supply are going for the two players. A couple of other things that I can get up to here. I can look from WaffleMaster's point of view. I'm seeing what he was seeing as he was playing. He's deciding where to place his barracks, and down it goes. PapaFrankZz, meanwhile, doing some serious staring at that hatchery. And now, one of the things that is always useful to do when you're playing Zerg is your overlords are, these are the Zerg equivalent of supply depots and pylons, with the difference is that there are creatures that fly, so you can send them across the map. I mean, they move with a speed that is approximately glacial, but nevertheless you can get them into key positions on the map. You know, stash an overlord above here, so it's hidden by this sort of plant stuff, and it's got a good sight range, so you know, maybe see things coming for you. Stash one here, it can see units moving through here. Send one over to here so that you can later on just fly it into your opponent's base and have a look at what's in there. In general, if you do something like that, your opponent's likely to shoot the overlord down, but you know, with 200 health, there's a pretty good chance the overlord will get deep enough in that you'll get to see all of that tech structure for a relatively cheap price. Bear in mind, you know, a Terran can drop a scan to see that sort of thing, but a scan that you drop is a mule that you didn't drop, and a mule will definitely mine a couple of hundred worth of minerals. So, you know, whichever race you are scouting, you generally have to pay for it in one way or another. But that is normally money well spent to have that information. So, in the production tab, we can see 6 lings just coming out for the Zerg player, and you know, in general, if I'm playing Zerg, I like that there's this early hatchery down. I like that there's these early lings out. I don't like that they're just parked at home. You know, one of the bonuses as a Zerg player is you can get these units out early, and what you want to be doing with these is having them busy on the map. Having them wandering about this map looking for stuff. Spread them out, have them running about. What you're looking for the scouting SCV, you're looking for the SCV that's coming down to drop a proxy, you're looking for the stray marine that's trying to clean up your overlords. It doesn't really matter. The key to them is, you know, you have map control while you've got those lings running about. Again, the spawning pool, this is an absolutely key upgrade, and one that you should never skip as Zerg. That is tantamount to skipping leg day. You want to get metabolic boost in straight away. On this occasion, straight up to Roach Warren, and Roaches are great units, so nothing wrong with that at all. If you do decide you're going to rush to Roaches, then potentially you should save the metabolic boost for a little bit later. But if you are rushing to Roaches, a couple of things to look out for. One, Roaches will cost you money, because the Roach itself is a reasonably cheap unit. 75.25 does cost a little bit of gas as well, but they're heavy on supply. If you're cranking out Roaches, they're twice, you know, 1 Roach is 2 supply, whereas that's 4 lings, because a single larva gets you 2 lings. So here we can see, like, this worker is going to get chased off by these Zerglings, and that's good. But you know, if these Zerglings were somewhere out in the map, you just be confident that you're keeping your opponent in the dark. What was I on about? Yeah, Roaches costing 2 supply means that actually for every 4 Roaches you also need to build an overlord, and the overlord costs you 100. So you know, that all mounts up. The cardinal error here is that this player is, you know, PapaFrankZz, you're not building workers. You're just not building workers, and you need them. You know, you're mining gas here, none here. You've only got 7 out of 16 workers on these mineral patches. At this stage, you want both of these saturated so that you've got a ridiculous income, so that you can just crank out Roaches at a furious rate. The other thing you absolutely have got to have, you've got to have queens. queen is built from the hatchery, like all Zerg units, but it kind of spawns from the hatchery directly. It doesn't use a larva. And the queen can kind of spit on the hatchery so that the hatchery produces more larvae, so it increases your rate of production. It's also a useful unit defensively, because it can see off, a reaper, it can see off a scouting worker, a couple of queens can see off an oracle or stuff like that. So it's a useful unit defensively, and in addition to that, it can plant creep tumors that allow your creep to spread out into areas where you don't have buildings. Creep is fantastic stuff if you're a Zerg player. Your units move significantly faster when they're on creep, with the exception of workers. So any fight that you have, you want to happen on creep. But in addition to that, it gives you vision as your creep spreads out. Once you've got one creep tumor, it can then spawn a second, which can then spawn another and another. So you can spread this creep across the map, and it gives you vision. It connects your bases with lines of A, vision, and B, kind of highways for your units to move very, very quickly indeed. So in the production tab, we can see that WaffleMaster is busy. He's got stuff going on. The tech lab is coming down onto this factory. That will allow him to build siege tanks. There is a tech lab on this barracks, but a bit like metabolic boost for Zerg, the key upgrades here for the Terran are these two, stim and combat shield. If you're going to have a marine heavy army, you definitely want to have those. Now this is a substantial force making its way across the map. If we look at the army supply though, the Zerg this time slightly in front, and I wouldn't want to be coming into this. Now, micro is at this stage in the tournament, micro is really essentially not that important. If you've got a bigger army and you A-click, there's a pretty good chance you win, but there's a few things that are easy to do that don't require crazy APM or anything like that. And it's if you do have an army just standing at the front door, think about the position you want them in. Lings are melee units, so you definitely don't want them to be behind your roaches, because your roaches will stand and shoot and these lings will be trapped behind them. So you need the lings in front, so that they're able to run out and get that wrap around on your opponent's units. So little things like that are kind of not even real-time micro, it's sort of advanced micro. What position do I want my units to be in? These Marauders are great tanks, 125 light, they're armoured, which means that they really do survive very, very well indeed. So they add a lot of meat to this army, as well as a reasonable amount of damage output. The Cyclone adds good amount of damage output, and is good against things that are armoured, is good against buildings. So this Terran army is not insignificant at all. This is a scary looking army. These 4 spine crawlers, however, have a large range and do a pretty substantial amount of damage. You can see 30 per hit they will do against armoured stuff, 25 against light. So those 4 crawlers will crunch through this lot pretty quickly. So let's see what's about to happen. Both players still building units. The melee upgrades for the Zerg are already at level 1, and level 2 is about to finish. So it looks like that will be done before WaffleMaster moves in with this push. Is he going to move in with this push? A little bit hard to tell. He's got stuff at home. You've got a siege tank here. I wouldn't want to be going in without my siege tank with me. This Overlord does get a really good look around WaffleMaster's base, so PapaFrankZz knows. Oh, here we go. Ah, no, it's off creep again, and that's not how you want it to be. But the Lings this time do get the wraparound. There is enough roaches in the back to just dole out that DPS and clean this up reasonably sharpish. This fight, again, would have been, way more economical for the Zerg had it happened here. These 4 crawlers, never fired a shot. Look, and they do so much damage. If you look at what a roach does, it's doling out 16 compared to the 30 against armoured of one of these. So these are good things don't discard them from the fight. So, PapaFrankZz, you're currently supply blocked. You've got a lot of money. You need to be cranking out just all sorts of stuff. The hive, I don't know if you've got a plan for the hive. It's not really something you need right now. Maybe you're planning Ultralisks or something like that, and they're certainly great units. But really worry about the basics before you worry about that high-end tech stuff. This is some scary Terran stuff amassing on the other side of the map here. WaffleMaster has regained the supply advantage, and that shouldn't be happening against Zerg. 3 Overlords in production will finish before this Terran army gets across the map, but will there be enough time to then build additional units as well? Are there upgrades in this stuff? There are not. So these Permarines are 0 stereo and don't have combat shield, do not have stim. So the Terran is just sort of relying on weight of numbers, but it is a big number advantage in the army supply here. You can see that there are a couple of useful upgrades for the Zerg coming. One of those is roach speed, one of those is increased range for Hydralisks. Now Hydralisks are squishy but have a high DPS, so the damage 12, but the weapon speed at 0.54 is pretty rapid. So you want them behind your roaches, you want them at the back. They've got pretty good range. I'm sorry, I was telling you the range. Yeah, you want this to happen on creep. This is better this time. No, keep pulling back, pull back. Invite this Terran to come into this stuff. I think that, you know, this mech in the back, though, of the Terran army, there's just too much. It's as simple as that. The supply imbalance is just too big. Finally, the Terran steps onto creep and does, you know, take some damage from these, but there just isn't any Zerg left. There's a couple of Ultras building, and Ultras, you know, don't get me wrong, will be very, very good against this stuff. Ultras against Marines are painfully good. Marines, you know, their bullets essentially bounce off Ultras. The Ultras, meanwhile, do splash damage with that melee sort of slice that they do. But there's just nothing left for the Zerg, and it looks like GG again. This is a powerful push. These siege tanks doling out the damage from a long way at the back. The Thors are just pummeling out damage, and none of that has taken any hurt. Here come the Ultras at last, but against this much mech, they just won't survive, especially if they run about like that and don't actually land any shots. Oh, but potent stuff from WaffleMaster. He has stuck pretty clearly to the rules of the game and the suggested playstyle, which is to build an army and then go across the map and kill your opponent. You know, stick to that. Don't worry too much at this stage of the tournament. Don't worry too much about your composition. Don't worry too much about, oh, which unit should I build. Just build loads. Just, you know, don't have lots of money in the bank. Turn it all into units and then go marching. If you've got a big army, it's generally a good thing. Pretty much always. GG.